record button, and so people will be able to hear that and say yes or no, would they like to join? And then last time I didn't do the official introduction, so I would like to talk about Tara a little bit, her bio. I think it's really important for you to know that Tara is a first-year PhD student in the neurobiology program. But what I didn't mention last time is she has strong professional development background, and she's developed training and professional programs in both the federal and private industry sectors. So as a member of the United States Navy Fleet Survey Team, she had developed a training program to ensure her team of military and civilian personnel were mission ready and possessed the skills they needed to succeed on both the home fronts and overseas. She also spearheaded efforts to develop a professional development program at a local leading upstream oil and gas company here in San Antonio. So Tara has a lot of experience, and even more so, she helped us out with professional social skills at UTSA in the graduate and postdoctoral success program. So with that more formal introduction for Tara, I would like to turn it over so that she can talk to us about emotional intelligence.
Thank you. Thanks for that wonderful introduction, Tracy. And as we mentioned, I'll be discussing emotional intelligence today. So there are some key learning objectives. By the end of this talk, you should be able to define emotional intelligence, otherwise known as EQ, identify the 5 elements of EQ, and understand that there's actually a brain basis for EQ and the ability for you to change your behaviors. And lastly, you should be able to understand the benefits of improving EQ. So first, I'm going to actually kick it off with a little group thinking session. So you can go ahead and take a sheet of paper if you have one, or just think about this question on your own mentally, but try to think about what exactly is emotional intelligence. And so some things that I would like you to think about specifically is, what does emotional intelligence mean to you? And I'd like for you guys to create a list of what is included in emotional intelligence and what isn't included in emotional intelligence. So I'll go ahead and start the clock now. So you guys have 3 minutes, and I'll put a little, I'll have a little timer for when your 3 minutes is up. Okay, everyone, so we have about 1 more minute on those reflections. So remember, we're trying to create a list of what emotional intelligence means to you. and also a sub list of what exactly you feel is included in emotional intelligence, and then also some things that you feel don't really fit underneath the realm of emotional intelligence. All right, so let's start wrapping up those reflections. And now I'm going to go ahead and open the floor and ask to see if anybody would like to share their reflections so we can have a little general discussion about this. So anybody's welcome to go ahead and unmute themselves and just if they'd like to speak, and you can turn your video on if you'd like, or you can leave it off, up to you. But I'll wait until I hear from about 5 people. I know that's a lot, but let's try to get some engagement if we can.
Hello.
Hey.
I would say emotional intelligence is the ability to be present in mind and allow the right filters to regulate my responses.
Awesome. That is a really excellent definition, Ben. Does anybody else have a definition that they would like to share? So we have one person who decided to share.
I don't mind.
Okay.
I wrote down being fully aware of emotions, how you feel, and how others may feel, react and or respond.
Yes, reacting and responding are very, being aware of those reactions and responses is a really key element of emotional intelligence. Thanks for sharing. Would anybody else like to share with their definitions? Maybe some things that you feel like don't actually fit under emotional intelligence.
I don't mind again.
Okay.
I wrote 3 things down: judgment, manipulation, and reaction.
Yes, those are really great examples of some things that we don't want to do when we're thinking of having emotional intelligence. Awesome. Would anybody else like to share?
I'll share. My definition was the ability to express emotions effectively and appropriately in different situations. And some things that I don't think that would be involved in that would be reacting reactively or impulse driven. Those are the things I thought that wouldn't.
Yes, I really like your addition of impulsivity. So that's one of the key things is having control over your own emotions, and you also mentioned situations. So adapting your response to those different situations that you may experience. So those are all really awesome definitions. So thank you guys so much for sharing those reflections with everyone. So I'm going to share my personal definition that I came up with. And so emotional intelligence, or EQ, is the ability to use knowledge of emotions to improve your life. Like overall, it's a big part of your life. And the key word here really is the word use. So scientists are actually a great example of this. These are people who may know a whole lot about emotions and emotional intelligence, but they don't actually always use that knowledge. So we want to be able to take all the things that we learned today and put it to use. And that ultimately will improve our lives. So another thing that I'd like to highlight for you all is there's actually a brain basis for EQ. And that's really exciting because it gives us some basics. So scientists have discovered a lot about emotional intelligence, And we've learned that humans are hardwired for emotions, and this is because things like fear, disgust, happiness, and are all emotions that have aided our survival as a species. And new maps of brain circuitry have told us that the brain is affected by emotion in two ways. First, signals can travel from first to the brain, to the rational brain, and then back to the emotional brain whenever we mull over something. And so that period of mulling over something or having that moment of self-reflection is actually really important for us to have more precise data in the future. And this leads to ultimately better decision making and more effective actions in the future. The second pathway that is involved in emotion regulation is the route the signal takes as the to the emotional brain before going to the rational brain. And so this is actually known as your limbic system, as I'm showing right here. And this occurs when there's an immediate and powerful recognition of a specific experience, and the emotional brain makes that association with some past events. So we can react strongly to something with actually not even it being fully in our consciousness. So one of my favorite pieces of evidence that's brain-based evidence is the presence of mirror neurons in the brain. And this actually came from an accidental discovery by some Italian scientists, and they were actually looking at the way in which neurons in the monkey's brain fired when they were grabbing for a peanut. And one day, a researcher picked up a peanut that was laying in front of the monkey, and that monkey was hooked up to some imaging equipment. And they noticed that the same group of neurons that fired when the monkey picked up the peanut, when they picked up the peanut themselves, also fired when they were watching someone else pick up the peanut. So this is really powerful evidence for one of the pillars of EQ, or the ability to understand the thoughts and feelings and actions of others. It also shows just how susceptible we are to the actions of others. And this is why we should strive to set a positive example for those that we interact with in our everyday lives. So that's great. Maybe not everybody's interested in the brain like I am. So how does this fit into the real world, these findings? And these findings really relate to your everyday life, and they're particularly relevant to the workplace or at school, where stress or the environment can affect performance. And humans are complex wholes, so they're programmed. We're essentially hardwired to respond emotionally. And as much as someone like me would love to, no one can perform their jobs apart from their emotions. But excess stress is particularly disruptive to smooth functioning, and it makes concentrated, rational thinking very difficult. So when you become emotionally intelligent, you gain the power to harness these emotions and use them effectively. So the first pillar of emotional intelligence is self-awareness. So self-awareness is defined as the ability to recognize and understand one's moods, motivations, and abilities. Some key traits include confidence, or the ability to understand oneself and others. And lastly, the ability to express your emotions with control and constraint, and in a healthy way. So you're not necessarily suppressing emotions, but you're dealing with those in a very positive way. The next pillar of emotional intelligence is self-regulation. And this is the ability to control one's impulses. And this is the ability to think before you speak or react, and the ability to express yourself appropriately. Some key traits for self-regulation include personal accountability and the ability to respond appropriately to irrational emotions or behaviors of others. The third pillar of emotional intelligence is motivation. So motivation is kind of hard to define, but here's a definition. And motivation is the general desire or willingness of someone to do something. So there's two types of motivation. One is internal and the other is external. So one of the best ways to maintain motivation throughout your life is to have that internal motivation for things that you choose to do. And some key traits that fall underneath this pillar of EQ are perseverance, your focus, and your ability, a really good, solid understanding of your why. So what I mean by that is choosing and selecting things that are meaningful to you and align with your higher purpose and the idea that you have for yourself. The fourth pillar of emotional intelligence is empathy, and empathy is the capacity to understand or feel what another person is experiencing from within their frame of reference. That is the capacity to place oneself in another's position. So some key traits are being self-aware and self-control. And if you remember, these are actually other pillars of emotional intelligence. And finally, the fifth pillar of EQ or emotional intelligence is social skills. And these are the skills that we use to communicate and interact with each other, both verbally and non-verbally, through gestures and body language, and through even our personal appearance. And some key traits that a person with high EQ has is that they're a good communicator. They understand that speaking and listening what's appropriate. And they also have a genuine appreciation for the people around them. And they realize the impact that they can have on others. And they make the choice to make that impact a positive one. So finally, what are the benefits of EQ? So there's many benefits of working on your EQ. This can include improved relationships, physical and mental health, and finally, and a higher sense of purpose, and finally, success overall. So that brings us to our badge activity. So we're going to go on a road trip, and I'm not sure if everyone got the notification about bringing some tools to the event, but if not, we can definitely adapt. So what I'd like everyone to do is just to actually practice using the 5 pillars of emotional intelligence. So we'll take 10 minutes to become more self-aware. So I would like you guys to each take out your rocks if you have them, and your pieces of paper if you have them. And then what I'd like you to do is to use your Sharpie to write all of the positive and negative things that you have experienced in the past week. All of the negative thoughts and experiences should go on the rocks, and all of the positive experiences should go on your piece of paper. And I want you to take a mental note of any intense emotions, and then I want you to let that pass. And so this is a good practice of self-regulation. And then if you have any supplies laying around, if you have 2 small bags, you can place the rocks in one bag and the paper slips on the other. And I want you to think about which bag would be best for you to take on your road trip in life. And then finally, we'll come back together and take 5 minutes to discuss the items on your rocks and your paper slips with someone in your life. So you have since you attended the session today, you have an opportunity to share your experiences with the group. And this will allow us to practice empathy and our social skills. So I'm going to go ahead and let you guys reflect and try to gather these materials if you have them. If you don't, if you have a piece of paper, and we can still make do. So you can take a piece of paper and make some rocks like this. So you can write down whatever negative emotion that you experience, and then crumble it up, and that could be your rock. And then you'll have your slips of paper as your positives. You'll write your positives on that. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, so about 5 more minutes on this particular activity. So remember, we're putting all of the positive things we experienced on the slips of paper and all the negative things that we've experienced on the rocks, if you have them, or your crumbled up pieces of paper. Okay, so about 1 more minute on those reflections and completing the activity. Okay, everyone, the 10 minutes is up. So I hope that was enough time for you all to kind of get engaged with this activity. So again, I'm going to open the floor for discussion. And so you can unmute yourself. I'm not going to call on anyone. So, it'll be up to you guys to be brave and discuss what you found. So does anybody want to share some of the positives that you guys wrote down from this past week? Yeah, okay, so I'm reading the chat. So Marin said a Super Bowl party that was socially distanced. That's super positive. That's awesome. Sounds fun.
I was grateful that I got to spend time with my family this week.
Oh, that's a great example too. It's always nice, especially during these times, to really connect with those that we love. Dominic's, let's see, man, okay, we have a lot. Crystal, did you want to share any of these verbally, or would you like me to read some of them off?
Sorry, I put in the chat that I'm at work, so I actually don't really want to say them out loud, but if someone wants to read them, I'm perfectly fine with that.
Oh yeah, okay, no worries, thank you. So she had some of her positives that let's see, the first one is that she had the courage to confront someone that was harassing her. So that's really big. That's huge. Taking that action for yourself. Going to yoga, that is a great example of something that we can do as far as self-care to make sure that we're kind of getting rid of those really strong negative emotions, because I don't know if everybody's been, but yoga is quite relaxing. Some of her negatives, let's see. I think we all can relate to this one, is just feeling that general sense of loneliness. And so that's why, attending maybe a workshop like this can kind of give us a little bit of that sense of connecting with others back. All right. Does anybody else would like to share? Either verbally, or I could keep reading some from the chat. Yeah, binge watching, that's huge during these times. Oh yeah, that's a good one for school. Having a successful presentation for a class of seniors and making kimchi, that's really interesting. I don't even know where to begin to make kimchi.
This past week, I had like a deeper conversation with somebody that usually I don't talk to on like a deep level like that, and it was really nice just sitting there and going a little bit deeper and talking about things, and it meant a lot to me, and it was nice.
Yeah, that is nice when we can really, have those opportunities to connect with people that maybe they're a little bit different from us. They have different viewpoints, or maybe we just get busy and we don't get to connect with them. And so that really can help with your emotional intelligence. Just being exposed to that diversity of thought is really great for your self growth. Oh yes, Julia, I really, I really can relate to this one. Getting Starbucks, it's like my lifeline. I'm sure other coffee drinkers out in the bunch as well. And that's also a really good point, is to make sure that you reward yourself for like those things that you do, those goals that you set and you actually achieve. Pup cups from Starbucks. Oh yeah, those are so cute. Yeah, I don't know if everyone's seen the videos of little puppies getting the little coffee cups from Starbucks.
Hi, I had some positives for this week.
Okay.
So I wrote down, I'm thankful for health, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. I just got back from Colorado, and I was there for a week, and it was for a funeral. So I'm just thankful to be back home and safe and sound. And the experience that I had was a celebration whenever I was there. So all is well in this past week.
That's good though. That's really, yeah, that's a big one that we all take for granted is our health. You know, you don't realize how important your health is until, you know, it's maybe a more challenging time. So that's wonderful. I can share some of mine, I guess. So I felt really good. I tend to, I don't know, not always. This one was good for me. So I completed assignment super early. So that was great. That was a great feeling to get something like that in ahead of time. One of my negatives, let's see, because I actually went out and grabbed some rocks. Okay, so I got my rock here. Let's see. Oh, so I do research, and part of doing research with human subjects, you have to do a lot of COVID protocol. And I brought this person in, and literally everything that could go wrong started to go wrong. Like just starting with the COVID, like taking their temperature, the thermometer wouldn't work, and even when I replaced batteries, like it still wouldn't work. And so then I had to get a whole new thermometer, like, and then it just kept spiraling down from there. And I'm sure we all have had those kind of days, but it was a negative experience. But you know, you gotta try to work through those. So that's all I can say on that. Does anybody else have some negatives? So negatives are a little bit harder for us to talk about.
Yeah, I put frustration and annoyance.
Okay, just in general, or like in response to something?
No, so I work at a hospital facility, and our main system went down on Wednesday. So pretty annoyed and frustrated for charting.
Right. Yeah, that is super frustrating when our tech fails. And oh, and I'm sure everybody also can relate when we have to try to adapt like our presentations, like I'm trying to do right now, to a virtual setting. And it can be a little frustrating. But again, so this is I'd like to highlight this point, and this is that, you know, it's all about perspective too, like how you tackle these negatives are important as well. Jessica wrote playground trips with her son. That's great. Oh, and making progress in school. Also, like I'm sure we all can relate. We're still trucking along during these times, and so that's a huge achievement for everyone. Oh yeah, negative. Yeah, car problems. So that I've actually you're like the third person that I've talked to that has had car troubles in the past week, and so that's again really frustrating. It could be a really negative experience, but you know, it happens to everyone, and so being able to realize that, and maybe if you're an employer or someone, you know, a professor, just having that understanding too, that, you know, these kind of things happen to people, and being understanding of that. So that's high EQ. All right. Yeah, so yeah, there's a lot of great examples. So guys, thank you so much for sharing and trying to make this as interactive as we can. So now I want to ask you guys another question. How did sharing your positive experiences and your negative experiences make you feel? Do you feel like kind of identifying those negative things helped you in any way? And also, did focusing on the positive things make you feel a little bit better? So would anybody like to share their thoughts on that?
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, I went for a funeral, but I chose to see it as a celebration of life, though it was a life lost, not lost, but a life lived of 16 years. That's pretty young. But just to focus on the great things, the interactions, the moments, and the memories helped me to get through and just kind of be strong through the whole occasion in the event. So
Yeah, I think that's such a wonderful example of having things in perspective and maintaining that really positive outlook is important. That's impactful for not only you, but I really appreciate you sharing that because it's a great example for others to kind of live by and make sure that they're taking a positive approach to something like that as well. All right, so this activity was called road trip. So if you're packing a bag and you're gonna take a bag on a very long road trip, which bag do you guys feel like you would want to take? So I have a physical bag here. It's filled with all of my negative rocks. Do you guys think this bag of rocks is heavy or light? What do you think? They're real rocks. They're not fake rocks. Heavier, yes. Yeah, so a lot of people putting it in the chat. It's way heavier. The negatives are just weighing me down. Do you guys think that this would be a good bag to take on our trip? No. Okay. But is it important for us to be aware of these things and how they can influence us and impact our lives? Yep. So that's, a physical representation like this. We want to be aware of those emotions, contain them, but we don't need to carry them through life. Okay. So the next part of this activity is, I'll move to the positives next. Okay. So let's go through these. So I have all these positives in this bag. Do you guys think that this is heavy or light? Compared to the bag of rocks. All right, so I'm getting some feedback.
Light.
Yeah, it's way lighter. So out of the two bags, which do you guys think would be better to carry around with you all day through life?
I'll take the positive over the negative.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're gonna want to take this nice light bag full of all those positive things. We want to strengthen those pathways in your brain, that are responding to that positive stimuli that you're getting, right? And we want to contain in a healthy way those negative things that we're experiencing. Okay, so now that gets me to the next part of this activity. So I want you to take your rocks wherever they are. Like maybe you just had a page. I read some of you just had that piece of paper. That's okay. You take that piece of paper, and so you became aware of it. You're aware of those things and how they made you feel, and you thought about them and what you maybe could do better, or how you could change things in the future. So you learned from them. But now I want you to take those negative rocks and throw them in your nearest trash can. So wherever that is, just get rid of them. They're out of your life. We made peace with them. They're gone. So does that provide any feelings for anyone? Does anybody feel motivated now that those things are kind of like you recognize them, those negative things, and they're out of your life now, for now? I would hope you feel a little bit better knowing that you have recognized those negative feelings and you've learned from them. Yeah, so yeah, Rebecca said that she feels really relieved that they're in the trash can. So yeah, that's kind of how I feel. Like I recognized those things that were challenging for me in this past week, and I'm hoping to improve upon, learn from those experiences. When Jada smiled, yeah, I mean, I'm smiling right now. So pretty powerful. So what I'd like for you guys to do though, that brings me to the last little task, is to receive your micro credentialing badge. I just would like everyone to write a short, very brief reflection of how this exercise made you feel. If you found it helpful in any way, any kind of relief from recognizing those positive and negative emotions that you're experiencing in your lives, maybe how you could see this helping you in the future, and if you feel like you could implement something simple like this into your everyday life. And so that concludes my presentation. I really thank you. So I have one more thing that I'd like to leave you guys with, and I feel like this is a really powerful thing, because we're talking about improving ourselves and being positive and choosing to focus on the positives instead of the negatives. And well, you may think, okay, well, I'm always just really geared to being kind of the negative, the glass half empty kind of person. How can I even change this about myself? And the answer is yes. And this video, it will explain why better than I can. Oh, not sure. Okay, well, looks like the video is not going to work, so I can explain it quickly. Basically, your brain is super powerful, and this comes from the idea of neuroplasticity. So you have all these connections in your brain. You have, and when you have the positive inputs, you can strengthen those pathways, those positive pathways in your brain, and then conversely, you have the negative parts, the negative experiences. And again, those can, if you keep repeating those over and over and over again, you'll strengthen those pathways that are related to those negative experiences in your brain. So this is super powerful and inspiring to me, because it shows you that your brain, you have the ability to change your brain, and you have not only the ability to change your own brain, but the brains of others around you. And so that's huge. It's really huge that you realize that the power of your brain, and that you can change the brains of others. And so that's why it's super important that you focus on these pieces of paper and these positive aspects of your experience, and sharing that with others, because ultimately that's going to create a better life for all of us. All right, so that concludes my talk. Thank you guys so much for attending, and I hope you enjoyed it.